Hey, Sally DeCesare here. Thanks for joining. We are beginning our first experiment in Pam Grout's E squared. In the memo of this video, you will see a link to the preface if you've missed that. And then where I just kind of read a synopsis of the preface. Today we'll get a synopsis of experiment 1. The dude abides principle. There is an invisible energy force or field of infinite possibilities. Everyone else is waiting for eternity, and the shamans are saying, how about tonight? Alberto Villoldo, Villoldo, PhD, Cuban-born author and teacher of energy medicine. The premise: this experiment will prove to you once and for all that there is a loving, abundant, totally hip force in the universe. Some people call it God. You can call it prana, the all there is, or the cosmic Kramer. I don't care. The problem up until now is that we've had to take this force on faith. We weren't allowed to see it or touch it, but we've sure been asked to do a lot in its name, like tithe and meditate and put ashes on our head. I much prefer the idea of energy force that moves on two-way streets. Does give and take ring any bells? In this experiment, we're going to let the FP, a field of potentiality, know that, baby, it's now or never. We are so over believing in something that gets its jollies from playing hide and seek. We want irrefutable proof. And we want it now. You know those 4 little initials, ASAP? Well, those are the ones we're shooting for. We're going to give the FP exactly 48 hours to give us a sign, a clear sign, a sign that cannot be written off. Neon would work. Because we bought this idea that the force is vague and mysterious, we really don't expect to find it, or at least we're not surprised when we don't, because we haven't been trained to notice. This inspiring, energizing, life-altering force is zooming in, around, and through us without our awareness. What? What, me? Wait? If your medicine doesn't grow corn, of what use is it? Sun Bear, Chippewa Elder. We don't feel guilty for wanting to turn on the radio and listen to NPR. The FP is just as non-prejudiced and available as electricity once we make the decision to really look for it. And it's not hard to find. Anecdotal evidence. God is not the pushover that some people would like you to believe. Alex Frankovich of Skinny Bones by Barbara Park. Some version of the dude, to borrow the moniker from the cult classic, The Big Lebowitz, exists in every culture that has ever existed. Even physicists whose sole line of work is studying the properties and interaction of matter and energy know that they're about the invisible force. Most of them do not call it God. Albert Einstein, for example, claimed no belief in a traditional God, but he sure as heck knew there was something a whole lot juicier out there in the cosmos. That juice, he said, was all he really cared about. The rest, he claimed, was just details. God as a terrorist. I don't know if God exists, but it would certainly be better for his reputation if he didn't. Jules Renard, French author. No sooner had I mastered my ABCs than I was taught that I, little Pammy Sue Grout, was a miserable sinner and had fallen short of the glory of God. It was, in fact, same as 2 + 2 = 4, and LMNOP is more than one letter in the alphabetical lineup. The only redeeming part of this all-important lesson is at least I wasn't alone. Turns out everybody else in the world is a sinner too. Even Miss Beckwith, my tender-hearted kindergarten teacher, who let me bring Pokey, my pet turtle, to class every other Monday. Bad thing about being a sinner is it guarantees a one-way ticket to hell. It was a little hard getting a handle on hell, being I hadn't traveled much farther than the Kansas border. But according to my dad, hell was not a place you wanted to go. And the escape clause was to get saved. So when I was 4 years old with a church organ playing just as I am, I walked down the front of the little Methodist church in Canton, Kansas, plopped myself down on my knobby little 4-year-old knees and asked the good Lord to forgive my sins. My family, from a long line of Methodists, collectively breathed a sigh of relief. Well, our oldest is officially saved now, they crowed proudly. At least we can be assured that Pam is going to heaven. What a legacy. Oh, even though I was yawningly close to being perfect, a perfect kid, I made straight A's, tried not to fight with my siblings, stayed away from drugs and alcohol, and even made my bed without being told. I felt I was constantly being critiqued by this loving God who was sitting up in heaven, gleefully rubbing his hands together whenever I screwed up, which, gosh darn it, oops, there I go again, using his name in vain. Seemed to be pretty often. What a legacy to dump on an innocent child. God looks like ZZ Top and other annoying myths. Our ideas of God tells us more about ourselves than about him. Thomas Merton, Christian mystic. So these are the myths about God that we've learned, according to Pam Grout. Whopper number 1, God is a him. Even though the progressive churches sometimes refer to God as she, the FP doesn't really have a gender. We certainly don't talk about Mrs. Electricity or Mr. Gravity. The more appropriate pronoun would be it. The FP is a force field that runs the universe, and the same energy source that grows flowers, forms scabs over skin knees, and constantly pushes for wholeness. Whopper number 2, God looks like ZZ Top, makes black check marks after your name, and is basically too busy working on world hunger to care about you. God, if you believe the accepted box, is a little like Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird. This mysterious neighbor constantly peering out the window of his penthouse suite, waiting to catch us doing something naughty, naughty. We can't really see him, but we've been properly warned that he's there, watching, judging, monitoring our every move. Whopper number 3, God plays favorites. The FP is a force field that's equally available to everyone. It's a natural capacity in all of us. not an exclusive gift bestowed upon a few. In fact, that is the primary lesson Jesus taught. God is within. You are part of God. You can perform miracles. Benjamin Franklin didn't invent electricity any more than Jesus invented spiritual principles. Lightning and the resulting electricities have always been available. We just didn't realize it or know how to access it. Galileo didn't invent gravity when he dropped the wooden ball off the Leaning Tower of Pisa. He just demonstrated it. Likewise, Jesus demonstrated spiritual principles that he wants us to use and develop. We've wasted 2,000 years worshiping this idol of him instead of using the principles he taught us. Look through the Bible and nowhere does Jesus say, worship me. His call to us is to follow me. There's a big difference. Whopper number 4. God rewards our suffering and gives us brownie points for sacrifice, better known as life sucks and then you die. Many of us think life is some sort of boot camp for heaven. We believe this short lifespan is only a test for paradise, or for the paradise we're eventually going to earn. Nothing is plainer than the inevitability of sorrow and trials. But what if it isn't necessary? What if there's no reason to be poor or get sick or do anything but live an abundant, exciting life? What if these tragic, difficult lives are another rumor made up by the churches, cemented into our consciousness by years and years, millennium of conditioning? What I'd like to suggest is that this heaven you're waiting for is available now, and that you've been sold a bill of goods about who you are and what is possible. Whopper number 5, God is just so demanding. The FP doesn't judge, it doesn't punish, it doesn't think, well, Sammy C was a good boy yesterday helping that little old lady across the street. I think I'll answer his prayer about winning the lottery. Our fear has trapped us in a box that plays out our very limited perception. Whopper number 6. You don't want to ask for too much from God. You certainly wouldn't want to bug him. As I've already pointed out, the FP is not a person, therefore you cannot bug him. The FP is a power, an unseen energetic force. As the old saying goes, you can take an eyedropper or a bucket to the ocean. The ocean doesn't care. Whopper number 7. God is just so vague. Au contraire. Once you get rid of the black cloud of rumors and half-truths that hide your awareness, you'll find the unseen force communicates just as clearly as Dr. Phil. Once you rid yourself of the blocks, you'll be shown exactly what to do and how to do it. Whopper number 8. God only answers when he's good and ready. There is never a time where God or the force isn't guiding you, and you do not have to wait for any green lights or get out of jail free cards. The big guy is available 24/7 once you're ready to focus your full attention on it. The trick is to pay attention, trust, and as I continue to repeat, focus your full attention on it. The method. Allowing myself to become a little nutty and irrational did open me up to certain mystical experiences. D. Patrick Miller, founder of Fearless Books. In this experiment, you're going to devote 48 hours to looking for evidence of this all-knowing, all-perfect FP. Call it God, if that feels more comfortable. Luckily, the FP exists every single place you could ever think to look. Up the stakes, you're going to ask the FP for a blessing, or what I call an unexpected gift. You're going to give it 48 hours to send you this gift. You wouldn't normally receive a surprise check in the mail, a card, or a gift you wouldn't normally expect to receive. A surprise check in the mail, a card from an old friend, something that's truly unexpected. You don't get to specify the blessing. We'll do that later in experiment number 4. But you do need to give a clearly defined request and a concrete deadline. When my friend Wendy tried this experiment, she received not just one, but 2 unexpected blessings. She got a $1 an hour raise from her boss. Her boss called her out of the blue. And her brother, who lives out of state and never calls unless there's a death in the family, volunteered to help her move, some things he's never done in the last 6 moves she's made. Robin, another friend, went out to her car during the 48-hour time frame during which she was conducting the experiment and found a gorgeous handmade leather purse, a gift a friend left, who had no idea she was doing the experiment. I love the purse so much, I carry it today, she said. Results depending on your consciousness vary. Some people may get something simple. My friend Julie, for example, had a 2-year-old boy she'd never seen before come sit beside her at a park bench. They smiled at each other like 2 reunited soulmates. Or it might be something pretty amazing. Another experimenter, Eric, was offered a free ski trip to Lake Tahoe. Take note of how you feel about asking the energy field for a blessing. Do you feel a bit antsy? Wonder if you're being selfish? Doubt whether it's appropriate to ask for something good? This feeling provides insight. Maybe you don't believe you deserve a gift. That thought sends signals to the energy field and affects its resonance. Perhaps you think it's only appropriate to ask for something you need. That signal, too, is being radioed to the energy field. So this is only going to take 48 hours, 2 days. Expect to see the dude in living color. Expect it with your whole heart. Expect it with every ounce of your soul. Like any good hypothesis, this one is falsifiable. If you don't hear from the FP in 48 hours, feel free to write it off. So, step 1, pick a time to start the experiment. Now, usually works for me. 2, jot down the time and date. 3, ask the FP to make its presence known. Ask for a blessing. If you like, repeat the intention or approach listed on the following lab report, or make one up as you go, or make up one on your own. That's it. Let's go and observe. And so now I'm going to read to you what is on the lab report sheet, which you can download in the workbooks. The principle, the dude abides principle. There is an invisible energy force or field of infinite possibilities, and it's yours for the asking. The question, does the FP exist? The hypothesis, if there's a 24/7 energy force equally available to everyone, I can access it anytime simply by paying attention. Furthermore, if I ask the force for a blessing, giving a specific time frame and clear intentions, it'll send me a gift and say, my pleasure. Time required, 48 hours. So you're going to write today's date and the time, writing this down. You put the deadline 48 hours ahead for receiving the gift. So 2 days ahead. And the approach. Or you can word it any way you want. I hate to break it to you, FP, but folks are starting to talk. They're starting to wonder, is this guy for real? I mean, really, like it'd be so much skin off your chin to come down here and call off this crazy hide and seek thing you've been playing. I'm giving you exactly 48 hours to make your presence known. I want a thumbs up, a clear sign, something that cannot be written off as coincidence. And then it's got a space for research notes. Amit Goswami, PhD, a retired theoretical physicist, said, "We now have a science of spirituality that is fully verifiable and objective." So go out there, get yourself a gift, get yourself a blessing, and follow along for chapter 2, experiment number 2, where we're testing to see the power and the creation that we do have in our lives. Or don't. See you next time.